Fredericksburg. If you've ever eaten there, it's a delightful place. She has 3 wonderful cookbooks she's written. She's going to come talk about cooking with flours and things like that and do some demonstrations, and I think even going to cook some food to bring. That's going to be on Saturday, April 18th, or whatever Saturday is right around that. And let me tell you, that's one that, you know, that's a do not miss it seminar if you want to have some fun and get some good things too. Okay, anything else before I talk a little bit about bugs? Yes, ma'am.
Is there an organic, you're talking about the water troughs, is there an organic way to keep the algae from growing in a bird bath?
Same thing, cornmeal.
Even in the summer months? Too,
Yeah.
though?
It will reduce it. I won't tell you it will eliminate it,
Just help
but
it.
it will help it. But you know, we've just got to get beyond certain preconceived ideas we have. And that is that green water in a bird bath is bad. The birds love it. There's all sorts of healthy things in there, and it's our perception that the chlorine people have told us that it has to be crystal clear if it's going to be good water. And that's actually probably the worst water in the world. So I clean my bird baths periodically, but I don't demand pristine water. But if you want to reduce it, cornmeal will definitely work well.
Got a question over there.
Yes.
Yeah, cornmeal work on roses.
Absolutely. In fact, if you want to stop most problems with roses, about 3 times a year, you should have been at our rose seminar, you put it just, you know, a cup or 2 of whole ground cornmeal underneath your roses, and you'll stop 90% of the fungus before it ever gets started. Okay, let me talk briefly about insect problems that you may have in the yard. And by far the most common problem we have out there is grubworms. Grubworms are the larval stage of the June bug, and they eat plant roots. A grubworm here and there is not a bad thing. Every beetle out there has a grub as a part of its life cycle. So not all grubworms are bad. You know, people tend to find these giant grubworms in their compost pile, and they absolutely panic thinking that it's going to eat the entire neighborhood in the next week or so. You know, I look at them, if they look like they got a sense of humor, I look at them and say, oh my God, did you get dome dirt in your neighborhood or something like that? No, these are not mutant grubworms that are now going to take over the world. These are simply the grubs from a different kind of beetle that in most of our area is totally harmless. Now understand, in Corpus and some places, a grub related to that does some damage to palm trees. But for the most part, that's not going to be a concern here. The grubworm that eats the roots of our grass is the larval stage of the June bug. And so when are you going to have grubworms? After you have June bugs. So watch your porch light. Anybody that know what a June bug is? It's those sort of copper-colored beetles that you see flying around your porch light and all. It's those are the guys and gals that are going to be out laying the eggs that make the grubworms that eat your grass. If you see June bugs, and I don't know, you know, there are lots of weird things have happened in the world over the past few years. I don't want to get into why, because most of us don't know. But used to be, June bugs came out in June. That's where they got their name. We're already seeing a few June bugs now. Some years we see a world of June bugs in March and April. Some years we see them in July and August. But if you see June bugs, pretty soon you're going to have grubworms. So if you see June bugs, take action to stop the grubs before they damage your grass. What you do is put out the beneficial nematodes. Beneficial nematodes are more effective than any poison you can put out, and you'll also get rid of fire ants and a lot of other things that you might not like when you use beneficial nematodes. Now, beneficial nematodes come in 2 forms. There's a dry form that you're supposed to go sprinkle around. I've never had any luck with those. The beneficial nematodes that we use and recommend come on a little blue sponge. Small sponge has 1 million nematodes on it. We count them to be sure they're all there. And it'll do 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. You can also get bigger sponges for bigger areas. But the beneficial nematodes are by far the most effective grubworm killers we have. If you're reading gardening magazines and things, you may see some talk about something they call milky spore disease for grubs. Different grub, different control. Beneficial nematodes are what you pretty much need for grubworms. How do you identify grubworm damage? Well, you know, I told you on brown patch, you lift up the grass blade, the blade comes up, the runner stays down. If you've got grubworm damage, the whole runner comes up because literally the roots have been eaten off of it. A lot of people are suddenly realizing they had grubworm damage last year. They're going out and they're trying to figure out why their grass is dead. and they find out that it's missing a lot of roots. So we know the grub worms did the damage. But it doesn't mean you need to put out nematodes right now, because those grub worms are either long gone, they've either dug way down deep into the soil waiting to become June bugs, or else they have literally gone elsewhere. So the time for grub worms that we recommend putting out beneficial nematodes is when you see the June bugs. Now, beneficial nematodes will also control fleas. Use those whenever you have fleas. If you have ticks, use them right now, because this is the one time a year the ticks are down at ground level where the nematodes can control them. But lots of different reasons use beneficial nematodes. But here we're talking about lawn maintenance. We're talking about grub worm damage, and beneficial nematodes are the way to control them. Yes, ma'am.
We have a lot of problems with either mold or moles. Is that part of the reason? Or are they actually eating the roots of the grass? Or
No, moles are insectivores. They eat insects.
any insect?
Yeah. Where do you live? Not in San Antonio.
In La Vernia.
They're going after earthworms and grubs and things like
I
that.
didn't think I had any earthworms.
Yeah, well, you probably have some grubs. Start with the beneficial nematodes and see if you eliminate their food source. Otherwise, you may have to get a trap that kills them. Yes, sir.
They need something to kill the grub worms.
Uh-huh.
I've got something under my storage building they can have. Oh,
Absolutely. Now, I grew up with a beagle. You got a beagle, they'll go out and dig them up and eat them. My lab does that periodically too. No, if you're getting little holes dug in your yard, it's probably skunks or possums or things like that. Digging, looking for things. If you've got a whole road plowed through your yard, you've got an armadillo going after it. If your entire yard's plowed up, you've got wild hogs going after it. They're all the above. Let me cover just one or two more things, and then I'll let anybody that needs to go. I know there are a lot of things we want to do on Saturday mornings. Especially for folks who live in the country, every year, it's not every year, but some years we have real problems with little caterpillars that eat the new leaves on the oak trees as they first start to come out. And who knows, we never know what year they're going to be bad. It always seems that they are worse in the years that the trees are really stressed. The trees are really stressed this year from drought damage. There is a little tiny wasp, so small you have to look carefully to see it. It can't sting you or anything else. It's called a trichogramma wasp. And this wasp parasitizes the eggs of the caterpillars before they can hatch. And if you are concerned about caterpillar damage from these little gallworms and leaf rollers, now is the time to put out your trichogramma wasps. Later in the year, we'll put them out to control webworms and other problems. But if you are concerned about these little things that eat the new leaves as they come out, now is the time to release your trichogramma wasp. The way you do that is you buy a little card that's about this size that I think has now 4,000 or 5,000 wasp larvae on it. It looks like sandpaper, but what that is just little moth eggs. That little piece of paper has several thousand moth eggs on it, and each of those moth eggs has a developing wasp inside of it instead of a developing moth. And you simply go out, you pin these up on a tree or hang them with a piece of fishing line or something. Little wasps hatch out and they go out and destroy the eggs of the caterpillars that would eat the leaves. If you're concerned about the caterpillars that eat the oak leaves, get your trichogramma out right now. Yes, ma'am.
I've got an oak tree that we were pruning in January, and it's got these little teeny round things all over
Ignore
its
it.
branches.
Ignore
Okay.
it. Those are little wasp galls caused by a different kind of wasp called a synipid wasp, but it's harmless to the tree. Yeah.
I do, well, the leaves, the caterpillars eating on the leaves, they won't hurt the tree, will they?
It'll weaken the tree because the tree is using a lot of energy to put those leaves on, and if they all get eaten, it's got to put on a new set of leaves.
Can they eat anything else?
Those particular caterpillars, no. You'll see them hanging down on little silk threads and things. There are many other kinds of caterpillars which do other damages. There's one that gets on the mountain laurel, then of course in midsummer everybody knows about the webworms that get on pecan trees. The caterpillars that come out later will be controlled by the bigger wasps, the ones that'll sting you if you go after them or upset them. But early in the year, those that we call the paper wasps are not out in any numbers here. I mean, if they were out, they would control these little guys, but this is before those wasps come out. Let me tell y'all again, you're not going to offend me in any way if you need to get up and go do something or go somewhere else. I will stay here and answer questions